Alright guys, so before we get started, I just want to explain that this section is basically the JavaScript language from scratch. So if you're not new to JavaScript, you're going to know a lot of these concepts, but I'd still suggest watching them, maybe even with double speed on. Even if you know this stuff, a refresher isn't going to hurt. We're going to talk about data types, conversion, functions, loops, arrays, object literals, all the core fundamentals of the language. Okay, we're going to work in the console for the most part, and then in the next section, we'll start on the document object model and working in the UI with events and so on. So what I want to do first is just set up our sandbox, which is very simple. It's just going to be an HTML file and a JavaScript file, and I'll go over how to include internal script tags as well as how to link an external JavaScript file with script tags. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump in and get started. Alright, so I'm on my desktop. We already have Visual Studio Code installed, and that's the text editor that I'll be using. So what I'm going to do is create a new folder here, and I'm going to call it JS_sandbox. Okay, and this is what we're going to work in for quite a while. So I'm going to open it with Visual Studio Code by right-clicking and saying Open with Code. But if you're not using this text editor, just open up this folder in whatever you're using. Alright, I'm going to just close the welcome screen up, and you can see we have an empty JS sandbox folder over here. So I'm just going to create two files. One is index.html, and then I'm also going to create one called app.js. Okay, so that's what I'm going to choose to call my main JavaScript file. Alright, now in the index.html, we're going to create a basic structure. Visual Studio Code includes Emmet by default, which allows me to use shortcuts, and I can just do an exclamation tab, and that'll give me this basic HTML structure with head and body tags. Alright, so I'm just going to change the title here to JavaScript Sandbox, and I'm going to say this is section 2, and then I'm going to put an H1 down here and put the same thing. So we'll just say JavaScript Sandbox section 2. Alright, now I'm going to save this, and I'm using live server as you saw me set up back in the environment setup video. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and say open with live server. That's going to go ahead and open this up in a browser. You can see the H1. I can open up my console in the browser with F12, and we're going to go over the console in the next video. But what I want to do now is just show you how to insert JavaScript into your HTML file. Alright, so you can do two things. You can do it inside the HTML file, or you can link to an external file like our app.js. So if I were to just put in script tags here, I could actually run JavaScript. So I could say like alert, which is a window function that will just show a pop-up with whatever I put in here. So if I say hello and I save that, you'll see that it'll automatically run. Now, it automatically runs when I save because I'm using live server. If you're not using something like that, you'll have to reload the page in order for it to run. Okay, now this putting a script tag in your HTML I wouldn't recommend unless it's maybe one or two lines of JavaScript that you're using. So we're not going to do that for this course. We're going to go ahead and link to our app.js by just putting in script tags and then setting source, src, equal to app.js. Alright, now if we had the JavaScript file in another folder, like a JS folder, we'd have to say JS/app.js. Alright, but since it's in the same directory or the same folder, we don't have to do that. So let's save it. Let's go to app.js and let's try out an alert. So we'll say alert. We'll say hello world and save, and it runs, and now we know that app.js is linked. Alright, so now we have our little sandbox to work in. In the next video, we're going to explore the Google Chrome console. Alright guys, so in the last video we created our initial index.html and app.js file, and we have those linked, and I have this running in live server from VS Code. You can see it's on my local host here. And of course, you don't need to do that. You can just open it right on your file system, or you can use some other type of server. Whatever you want to do is fine. Now, one thing I didn't mention is how to stop the server. So if you want to stop it, then you can go down to this right here, where it says port 5500, click that, and that will actually close the server up. So now if I were to reload this page, it's not going to work. Alright, and then if you want to run it again, you can just right click and say open with live server. Okay, so in this video what I want to do is just focus on the console, because that's what we're going to be working in for a while. The console gives us a way to test things, to debug, to just a way to get to output stuff from our code. Alright, back in the day before DevTools, we would do things like alert. If we wanted to, show something really quick, we would just say alert and run that, which isn't very efficient, and it's just not a good way to do things. So now we have the console, and in Chrome and just about any other browser, you can open it up, the DevTools up with F12, and then you have different tabs, and console should be one of those tabs. So you can actually write JavaScript or execute JavaScript from the console. So again, if I wanted to alert 1, 2, 3 and enter, you'll see that will actually execute. And you can get variables from your scripts that are connected. It's really powerful. Now this undefined that you see here just means that nothing was actually returned from this alert function that we wrote here. So we can put expressions in here. We can actually just put in a number. If we say 4, it'll give us back 4. If we say 4 plus 4, it'll give us back 8. We can select things from the DOM. In fact, if I just type the word document, it'll give us the entire document structure, so the HTML tags, all of that. If we want to select something from the DOM, we can do that from here. So we have this H1, and if we wanted to select that, we could use document dot query selector and pass in an H1, and we could do something like dot style dot color equals red, and it turns it red. Alright, now I know that a lot of you guys might not know what, query selector means, style and all this, and don't worry about it. I'm just showing you that you can do pretty much anything you could do from a JavaScript file from within your console. Of course, it's not going to stick. If I reload, it goes away, but we can use it for testing, debugging, and just trying things out. Alright, now if we want to log to the console from our application, let's put a comment in here. And by the way, if you don't know about JavaScript comments, // for single line comments, and a / asterisk, and then an asterisk / for multi-line comments. Okay, and I'll just go ahead and leave that in there. But let's go back up here, and to log to the console, we simply say console.log. Alright, and we'll say hello world and save, and notice that it executes right away because I'm using live server. If you guys are not, then you'll just have to reload after you type your code in. Alright, so that's how we log to the console. If we hold control and mouse wheel, we can make this bigger or smaller as well. Alright, so that's logging a string, and we're going to get into data types and all that later on, but just to show you, we can also log numbers, so we'll log 1, 2, 3. Now notice that the number is blue. That's because at least in the Chrome console, I'm not exactly sure about the others, numbers are blue, strings are going to be black. Alright, we can also log booleans, which is a true or false. Go ahead and do that. Booleans are also blue. We can log, we can log variables. If we want to create a variable, like let's say greeting, and I'm going to get into variables too. Sometimes I might do some stuff that I haven't explained yet, but we will get into it in a little bit. So if we want to log greeting and save, you can see it logs hello. Alright, we can also log arrays. Okay, so an array, we're going to just put some brackets. We'll just do an array of numbers, save, and you can see it logs the array. It also gives us this little arrow so that we can see each individual index and value. Okay, we can also log objects. So let's put an R, this is an object literal. So we'll say A1, B2, and save. And that'll log the object, and just like the array, we can hit the arrow button and we can see it in a more readable form. All right, another thing you can do with objects, which is really cool, is you can do console.table. Okay, so let's grab that and save, and it'll actually print the object out as a table. So we have the index and then the value. All right. Another thing we can do is log errors. So if we say console.error, so at some point in your application, you might want to, output something as an error. So we'll say this is some error and save. And notice that it logs it, but it puts it in red. It also shows us exactly where it is in the application. If I click on this link here, it'll bring us to the sources tab and show us the code, which you can't really see. I'll just make this bigger, and it shows you right where it is. Okay. Now, in addition to, all right, let's close that up. Whoops. We just want to go back to our console. Alright, so we can also clear the console, which is a good thing to do right about now. So if we say console.clear and run that and save, you'll see console was cleared. Okay, in addition to errors, we can do warnings. So we can say console.warn. And we'll say this is a warning. And it does the same thing as error, except it makes it yellow. And again, you can click on it and you can see exactly in the code where the warning happened. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you is the timer. So if we say console.time and we give it an identifier, like let's say hello. And then down here, we're going to say console.timeEnd. Same identifier, hello. And then we can do anything in between here. Let's say we just want to console log hello world a bunch of times. Oops. We'll go like that, and I'll just tab this over and save. So what it did is it ran all this. It console logged hello world, and then it gave us the time that it took from this point, from the beginning to the end. Okay, so if you ever want to know how long something takes in your script, then you can use console.time. Alright, so there's a lot of stuff here that, you're probably not going to use for a little while, but I wanted to show it to you anyways. What we're going to be using the most is just the, console log, just to show the output of whatever it is we're doing at that time, whether we're looping through something, whether we're looking at the result of a conditional, whatever it may be. We're going to be using the console to debug, to show things, and it's going to be a big part of this course. Alright, so that's it, guys. In the next video, we're going to start to look at variables, and we're going to look at the different ways to declare variables like var, let, const, and then we're going to move on to data types. So I will see you in the next lecture.